So, just like that, Ultimate is done. DLC is wrapped up, balance patches are finished aside from bug fixes, doors are closed, lights are off, Sakurai's on a brief break before throwing himself at his next project like the workaholic he is. While the competitive community is going strong and shows no sign of slowing down anytime soon, there's going to be less attention from casual fans for a while until the next game comes around. But it's not all bad. This interim period is a chance to sharpen the saw, and for creators like myself, a chance to experiment a little. We can venture beyond Smash's usual bounds and limitations to entertain ideas we wouldn't have before, or look at all the other platform fighters springing up nowadays and see what we can learn from how they've designed their games and their own rosters. And also a chance to run with stuff that might not have gotten as much attention a year or two ago. When DLC was still going on, speculation revolved around characters the community thought had a legitimate chance. Bringing up anyone outside that narrow scope was usually met with deaf ears. But now, with no one vying for a shrinking number of invites anymore, the community may be more receptive to ideas that, beforehand, might as well have been dead. This is Challenger Approaching, where we take a character who isn't playable in Smash yet and go deep into detail on what they could be like if they got in for real. Our challenger this time is someone who very much was not on people's radars during DLC speculation, which is weird considering how much he had in common with other characters who were often brought up. But with us between games now, we have a chance to double back and give him a closer look, especially when Smash may not be his only option now. Zagreus! Zagreus is the main character of Hades, an indie roguelite hack-and-slash title from late 2020, and one that got a lot of attention upon release. With a story set amidst the myths and legends of ancient Greece, Zagreus is the son of the Hades and prince of the Underworld, and he does not get along with his father whatsoever. After certain events that I cannot elaborate on because of plot spoilers, Zagreus decides enough is enough, flees the house of Hades, and attempts to escape and reach the surface. This is the core of the gameplay. Each escape attempt tasks him with carving a path through the Underworld's many layers, striking down any and all undead shades and wretches in his path. When he dies, and he will, this is not an easy game, he winds up back at the House of Hades to recuperate, prepare for another escape attempt, and get mocked by his dad. As a game, Hades offers a compelling take on familiar mythology that fits its premise and genre perfectly. What better for the roguelike experience of trying, failing, and trying again than attempting to escape the actual realm of the dead? Receiving aid from the gods of Olympus during your runs in the form of upgrades to your abilities fits right into their usual MO. The enemies Zagreus faces have all earned their place in the different locales of the Underworld, from the unending punishments of Tartarus to the pristine battlefields of Elysium, and since they're already dead, being slain is just a temporary inconvenience. And the devs at Supergiant Games have handled the source material with an impressive level of care and attention. Zagreus interacts with major figures from Greek myths at every turn. He was mentored and taught to fight by the shade of Achilles, he had a past relationship with one of the Furies that didn't work out, and even Cerberus is here as the sentry of the Underworld, and a very good boy. The Greek gods are portrayed as a dysfunctional family of sorts. The Olympians may get along with Zagreus, but not always each other, and this even comes up in gameplay. Hades himself is handled with more tact and nuance than hardly anywhere nowadays. True to the myths, he's not an outright villain, he's a lawful neutral figure who takes his job of overseeing the dead seriously. He's just bitter and resentful toward his son for reasons that become clearer over the course of the story. Even Zagreus isn't what you'd expect from the Prince of the Underworld, being polite and caring toward people who aren't antagonizing him. He's honestly kind of a huge dork. And the gameplay is polished like a work of fine bronze. Multiple movesets are unlocked over time, upgrades both temporary and permanent are found during runs and purchased between them, and a multitude of enemies, bosses, and semi-randomly generated runes stand in Zagreus' way each time he tries to escape. All that time spent in Steam Early Access listening to player feedback paid off in spades. But does Zagreus have a chance to join Smash? Well, probably not. Indie characters already have a tough hill to climb as is, and even if one does make it next game, it'll probably be someone whose series already has a foothold in Smash. With the next entry probably several years away, Hades will have long faded from the spotlight unless some kind of follow-up happens at the perfect time. The fact that he's a Western indie character doesn't help either, even if his game got localized in Japanese. That said, we're at a point now where Zagreus and his indie brethren may not need to rely on Smash. We're seeing new platform fighters pop up left and right lately, including multiple indie projects. Hades has done so well and was met with such acclaim that it's actually pretty plausible Zagreus might make it into one of them. What do the fates have in store? I cannot say. But if the fates are merciful after all, what would Zagreus be like in Smash, or any other platform fighter? His basic appearance is easy to set up. Take his design from his game as a reference point, recreate a higher res version using details on his official concept art, and go from there. Which is actually not so easy now that I think about it. He does have a notably complex design, so a lot of care would be needed to include every detail, from his crimson and black color scheme, to the decorative skulls on his left shoulder, to his heterochromatic eyes, especially his feet, constantly burning as if on fire. They could even have him leave scorched footprints on the ground when he walks and runs. Speaking of which, Zagreus has many different movement, weapon, and attack animations to draw inspiration from. They wouldn't always transfer one-to-one, but at bare minimum they'd work as a good point of reference, especially when all of his motions should feel very practiced and natural. He's been formally trained in multiple types of combat, so his animation should convey that he's comfortable with whatever weapon he's currently using and knows exactly what he's doing. Alternate costumes for Zagreus are easy to pick out, because he comes with the perfect source of inspiration, all of his Olympian relatives. Each has their own signature color palette, and all of them would work wonders. I'd personally keep Zag's hair color and skin tone the same between alts, focusing on changing the colors of his outfit instead. Maybe we could pull one palette from Achilles as well? He's Zagreus' mentor, so it'd only be fitting. Now let's go over Zagreus' stats and other attributes. His fighting style should be an extension of how he fights in his source material, and, more importantly, an extension of how his canon abilities function. In Hades, his playstyle can vary a lot based on which weapons he's using and which abilities he picks up over the course of a run. But most of them do have something in common, a focus on using your range to stay out of harm's way. As a mixed zoner, Zag can control space with projectiles and disjointed weapon hitboxes. Being competent at both gives him added versatility compared to specialist zoners, and it makes him difficult to outright counter. He does have a general game plan though. Use projectiles to threaten from a distance, then use disjoints to try and cover whatever his opponent does to avoid the projectiles. This versatility is augmented by dynamic elements that alter his abilities mid-match under certain conditions. We won't delve into that just yet, because where's the fun in spoiling a key mechanic so soon? But let's just say no two matches will ever play out the exact same when he's involved. Now for Zagreus' exact stats, and is he shorter than you expected? He's actually notably small in his game, a head shorter than some of the regular-sized characters. Compared to Smash's cartoonier fighters, he's still above average in size, but he'd be one of the shorter humanoid characters. While he may not be big, he is no slouch at taking a few hits. Thanks to his martial training and demigod nature, Zagreus ranks as a cruiserweight, able to take an above-average amount of punishment per stock. Which is useful since his mobility leaves some to be desired. His walk speed is decent, but his run speed is in the bottom quarter of the roster, and his initial dash is in the bottom 10. Zag's default mobility in Hades isn't that great, and it made sense to transfer that over. He doesn't mind getting airborne at least, with merely below average air movement and fall speed, but he's still at risk off stage because his recovery doesn't go very far. It's not all bad news. Zagreus' attacks have above average strength overall, with great range on several of them, and under certain conditions, a few of them can even get pretty powerful. His attacks are on the laggier side though, very much a fighter who cannot mash or he'll pay for it. His combo game also isn't that great, but he can still keep pace. He's just more about shorter conversions, big hits, and using his tools to maintain the advantage instead of blowing people up the moment he wins neutral. And now, time for Zagreus' moveset. Let's see what happens when he puts his array of infernal arms to use. We begin with his basic attacks. First, a jab combo where he punches forward with his right hand, then his left hand, then manifests the twin fists of Malphon onto both hands and rattles off a rapid series of strikes. With decent speed for a zoner jab, hits on frame 4, and pretty good damage, it's useful to fall back on. Zagreus' forward tilt has him summon the Stygian Blade, the weapon he's most associated with, and perform a horizontal slash. It's a solid spacing tool with decent startup for what it is, and good disjointed range for beating out opposing attacks. The reach is a little better than Marth's sword, but not as good as Ike's, and you can angle it up or down. For his up tilt, Zagreus holds Stygius above and behind him and swings it down and forward. The hitbox is in a weird spot for an up tilt, starting diagonally above and behind him and finishing at ground level in front of him. While it's not the fastest, its range makes it a good anti-air, and it boasts enough knockback to kill at high percents. Zagreus' down tilt has him stab forward with Stygius while in a crouching position. It's a low poke with great reach, especially since he slides forward slightly during it, but mediocre frame data that makes it more situational. Deals knockback at a low angle that forces techs, the way Mars and Roy's down tilts do. Rounding out this batch is Zagreus' dash attack, based directly on his dash strike with Stygius in his game. It's like his down tilt, but more so. He travels further during the sword thrust, hits harder and with enough knockback to kill near the ledge, but it has more end lag than his down tilt and the hitbox is placed higher, making it iffy against low crouches. That's a lot of sword stuff, but Zagreus' smash attacks pull from some of the other infernal arms, starting with a forward smash where he manifests Aegis, the shield of chaos, no relation, holds it in front of him as he charges, then rushes forward at high speed upon release. The longer you charge, the further Zagreus goes. It's a hard-hitting move with strong knockout power that even grants invincibility from the front once the attack goes off, but it doesn't have much range, doesn't go very far if you don't charge it, doesn't cross up shields, and has a ton of end lag. Zagreus' up smash brings out the twin fists again, performing a rising uppercut that creates a shockwave in its wake. Another hard hitter, and thanks to the shockwave it has more disjoint than you'd expect from a punch, but it's somewhat slow to come out, has a lot of end lag, though less than the forward smash, and has a blind spot behind Zag himself. Make sure you're facing whoever you want to hit with it. Then his down smash takes out Exagriff, the adamant rail, and fires a short-range spread shot in front of and then behind him at ground level. This move's inspired by a particular weapon upgrade you can find for the rail during a run. The shots travel a minor distance forward with effective power and the fastest startup of Zagreus' smash attacks, but there's still significant end lag. What happens when Zagreus takes to the air? Let's see his aerials next. His neutral air has him grip Stygius in both hands and swing it in an almost complete circle around him, starting around the 5 o'clock position, going counterclockwise, and stopping around 8 o'clock. It's a very good space clearing tool that even starts combos at low percents if you hit with the start of it, but it's kept in check by subpar startup and high commitment. Zagreus' forward air has him take out Stygius again and forcefully swing it straight down in front of him. It's based on another weapon upgrade you can find that happens to be similar to Cloud's forward air by total coincidence. Slow to come out, but strong and able to spike if you connect at the right time. Compared to Cloud's version, it's a bit faster to come out, but a bit weaker and with worse range. For his back air, Zagreus uses the Shield of Chaos again, swinging it behind him as he turns around. Since it's a shield, his arm is invincible during the swing. If it sounds a lot like Palutena's back air, that might be because both characters' shields have the same mythological inspiration. Zag's version has more knockback and a slightly bigger hitbox, but slower startup. Zagreus' up air is a weird one, readying Exagriff again and firing 3 shots from it while performing a mid-air backflip. It's based on another weapon upgrade you can find. The shots go a moderate distance and come out at the 1:30, 12 o'clock, and 10:30 positions, and while each shot's damage is underwhelming on their own, the sheer range they cover makes it an effective juggling move nonetheless. Just mind its significant end lag and landing lag. And for his down air, Zagreus brings Stygius above his head and plunges it straight down, creating a shockwave upon impact with the ground. It's a stall and fall move that hits pretty hard, especially with a shockwave, but it's super committal like these moves usually are, and the sword hitbox during the descent is smaller than you'd think. For Zagreus' grabs, he doesn't do anything fancy for them. It's a standard grapple, and his pummel has him knee his opponent. However, when he successfully grabs someone, he pulls out another weapon, the heart-seeking bow Coronacht, and all of his throws use it. Zagreus lobs the enemy forward and shoots an arrow at them for his forward throw, tosses them behind him and fires 2 arrows simultaneously for his back throw, flings them upward and fires a 3-arrow spread shot for his up throw, and shoves them onto the ground and fires an arrow at point blank for his down throw. The back, up, and down throws are all based on weapon upgrades for Coronacht. The back throw can kill at the ledge around 140% onward, and the down throw deals 12% damage and can even combo into an up tilt at very low percents. Finally, how about a few taunts? Such as one where Zagreus waves sheepishly at an unseen crowd, one where he beckons his opponent forward and says, "Shall we begin?" and one where he slicks his hair back and manifests Stygius just to rest it on his shoulder in an attempt to look intimidating. But we've only scratched the surface of Zagreus' potential. His specials let him truly come into his own, though it might take some time first. Let's start with his neutral special, and like with many zoners, it's a projectile. One of Zagreus' other combat options in Hades is to cast a projectile that can do one of a few different things. Our version has him cast a bloodstone missile directly forward, going an above average distance with below average speed and very minor homing abilities. The projectile deals decent damage and minor knockback if it hits someone, but if it does, the bloodstone latches onto the enemy just like in Hades, inflicting a temporary debuff that causes them to take more damage than usual. In this case, it's 1.2 times damage taken from specifically the player who used the cast, knockback is unaffected, and it lasts about 12 seconds, less for each time you hit them while it's active. While it's useful as a zoning tool, the real purpose of Zagreus' cast is to debuff a target so subsequent attacks hit harder. And there's one notable drawback. Once the debuff expires, or the cast hits a shield or object or goes its max distance, the bloodstone coalesces on the spot and floats in place, and Zagreus cannot cast again until he retrieves it, whether by getting close enough to it or waiting a further 10 seconds, at which point it comes back on its own. That's one special down, so what's next? Haven't we been neglecting something so far? There it is. The Eternal Spear of Aratha is the sixth of the infernal arms Zagreus can wield in Hades. Its special attack lets him throw it like a javelin, which is exactly how it works here. On use, Zagreus manifests Varatha in his right hand, rears back, and hurls it forward. The spear moves fairly quickly and goes a moderately long distance, about as far as Link's boomerang with a smash input, dealing damage to anything or anyone in its path. Once it hits its max distance, it stops and floats in midair. Press B at any point in the following 7 seconds to call the spear back to your current location, dealing a second hit to anyone in the way. Like with Cast, the spear is a zoning tool with some extra features and drawbacks. It deals decent knockback on the way out, but only a small hit on the way back, which lets you confirm into a handful of tilts and aerials. There is still startup to throwing the spear and calling it back though, and once it's in play, you cannot use any other specials until you call it back, which could be a problem if you get sent off stage. And if 7 seconds elapse before you call it back, it just vanishes on the spot and you don't get to do the return bit. On to the up special. What Zagreus got up his sleeve to recover with? Turns out, something surprisingly simple. Dashing is the main defensive option in Hades, letting Zagreus quickly reposition himself and, hopefully, evade enemy attacks. It's been toned down a little here, but it's still very useful. On use, Zagreus spreads his arms like a bat's wings and, well, dashes in whichever direction you press. It's quick, but it doesn't go very far, comparable distance-wise to Roy's Blazer. What's the upside? Dashing doesn't put Zagreus into freefall. This lets his dash be just one of multiple offstage options he can use interchangeably to mix up his recovery in different ways. You can also use it as a movement mix-up when trying to land, giving him a much better disadvantage state than one might expect. Though he's still at risk of being sent too far back for it to save him, and his dash does lose some distance if it's aimed at a downward angle, for balance purposes. Oh, and it doesn't have a hitbox, so you'd have to rely on using it to get around enemy attacks instead of blitzing through them. That's all well and good, but do you remember those dynamic elements I alluded to earlier? Here's where Zagreus' moveset awakens its full potential and embodies the roguelike genre's signature style of gameplay. Time for us to call upon the gods themselves. A key mechanic that practically defines the gameplay of Hades, Zagreus is offered boons from his Olympian relatives multiple times over the course of each run. Each god offers unique enhancements tailored to their specialties and domains. Our take gives Zagreus a repurposed version of the god gauge from Hades, which fills as he deals damage, takes damage, or slowly over time. Once the gauge is filled, activating his down special causes 3 boons to appear around him, corresponding to Zagreus' neutral, forward, and up specials. Select one by pressing a corresponding direction, and one of your specials gets upgraded for the rest of your stock. Each deity offers one specific boon here, for simplicity's sake, with 3 different boons available for each special, 9 in total. You could reasonably expect to fill the god gauge twice per stock, 3 times if you hang on at high percents, which means players would be making a lot of snap decisions each game. The available boons are as follows. Athena offers Phalanx Shot, turning Zagreus' cast into a large projectile of spinning shields that accelerates slowly and creates a small explosion upon impact. Oh, and it reflects any other projectiles in its path. That's right, a projectile that's also a reflector. Zeus offers Electric Shot, replacing the cast with a chain of lightning that activates immediately and travels in zigzag formation. The bolt deals 4 hits total, each linking into the rest for the highest damage of any cast boon if all 4 parts connect. The Bloodstone sticks into the opponent with the 4th hit. Dionysus offers Trippy Shot, turning the cast into a parabolic projectile of questionable substance and creates a high-powered blast upon impact with substantial knockback power. It also leaves behind a cloud of festive fog for a second, but it's purely aesthetic. Poseidon offers Tempest Flourish, enhancing Zagreus' spear to deal greater knockback and increased shield stun and pushback on the initial throw, making it much more effective at keeping opponents out. Ares offers the Curse of Pain, which causes the initial throw of the spear to deal a delayed second hit half a second after the first. Not only does it deal more damage than before, it can potentially let the throw itself confirm into a few things at lower mid percents. Artemis offers Deadly Flourish, giving the spear a 1 in 3 chance to deal a critical hit for greater damage and knockback on the throw or the return. This gives the move some actual KO potential and greater fear factor. Demeter offers Mistral Dash, enhancing Zagreus' dash by generating a cloud of freezing mist as it begins, giving it an actual protective hitbox that deals multiple hits as he moves. Knockback is still minor though, and unlike in Hades, the mist cloud doesn't keep going after the dash ends. Aphrodite offers Passion Dash, which makes the dash create a pink shockwave of energy as it finishes. This gives it a hitbox at the end instead, with greater damage and moderate knockback. Hey, love hurts. Finally, Hermes offers Greatest Reflex. Instead of enhancing the dash itself, it lets Zagreus perform a second dash immediately after the first. Allows for quick attack-like movement mix-ups on a character who can't normally do that. As you can see, boons let Zagreus' specials take on new, stronger properties, but since they're selected randomly, only exception is you can't roll a boon you already have, you don't get to fully choose which you end up with each time. Just like how the randomness of boons make each playthrough of Hades different, no two matches as Zagreus are ever the same. You do lose your acquired boons every time you lose a stock, but not only can you get new ones pretty quickly, your god gauge doesn't empty when you're knocked out, which could lead to some interesting, meaningful decisions if you're at 150% with 2 stocks left and your gauge just filled. Whew, that was a lot to go over. All that's left is Zagreus' final smash, and there's one god of note who hasn't pulled his weight yet. Dear old Dad. Calls in Hades are boons that grant superpowered yet short-lasting effects, and they're what usually uses the god gauge. This particular one is actually gained from a certain accessory acquired in the postgame. Channeling the energy of the Smash Ball, Zagreus invokes his father's power, unleashing a blast of energy around him. If any opponent is caught by it, they're stunned in place as he activates the call in full and vanishes from sight. Suddenly, Zagreus reappears nearby, flanking his helpless foes. He brandishes Coronat, fires a point-blank shot right at them, then vanishes again. He quickly does the same once, twice, 3, 4 times more, each time appearing in a different spot with a powerful blow with spear, shield, fists, and rail. Then he reappears for good directly above them, manifests Stygius, and performs a final devastating slash straight down. His foes sent flying away, Zagreus catches his breath, regains his composure, and the fight continues. This is what Zagreus could be like in Smash, the runaway prince of the Underworld, seeking to escape the only home he's ever known in hopes of reaching the mortal realm. Though his trials are arduous and fraught with defeat, mastering his array of weapons and skills, and taking the right boons from his divine brethren, allow him to even the odds. Blessed with a versatile set of zoning tools, Zagreus can operate competently at multiple ranges and control space in multiple ways, never needing to rely on one single thing. The movement mix-ups afforded by his dash give him a deceptively good disadvantage state and flexibility off stage. Any enhancements to his specials gained from boons let him tailor his kit to whatever he needs in the current matchup, as long as he's offered ones that help him right then. However, his zoning has flaws that have to be worked around. Both projectiles require commitment, and his disjoints have blind spots and occasional awkwardness. His attacks are pretty laggy with only a few exceptions, requiring his player plan things out instead of mindlessly mashing. And the randomness inherent to his boons means he's at the mercy of whatever he's offered each time. If he doesn't get the ones he needs most, he just has to work with what's there instead. How about that for the start of a new season? I wanted to ring in Challenger Approaching's post-Ultimate era with someone who'd really let me cut loose. I don't bring it up much, but I played the hell out of Hades when it first came out, and it was actually my personal game of the year for 2020. While I'm not very confident that Zagreus could ever actually get into Smash aside from a long-shot me costume next time, I wanted to play around with a what-if scenario, especially when he could easily wind up in Framemakers or some other indie project. I was real careful with how I handled his moveset, and several ideas ended up scrapped as it came together. He was always going to end up as some type of zoner just from his available abilities, but I didn't want him to end up super campy because it's not in character, which is why Exegriff only got 2 moves based on specific upgrades, and why I limited Coronacht to his throws. I also took some creative liberties with the source material by repurposing the God Gauge and having the ability to summon in random boons because I wanted to capture the feel of playing Hades. Hopefully it was worth the diversion from canon. With us in between Smash games now, we as a community have a chance to expand our scope a little and play around with characters we may not have talked about much during roster speculation, whether that be huge third parties who didn't make it, lower key indie picks like Zagreus himself, or the many Nintendo characters who missed out, some of whom might not get another chance. Hopefully what I've managed here might encourage you to follow suit, just for fun. Special thanks to these people here for helping make this video a reality. Thanks especially to my patrons for their continued support. And now, patrons get a say in who Challenger Approaching covers next. Alright guys, which of these 3 is it gonna be? So, until next time, give my regards to the good shade.